The new Ferrari California T then, T for turbocharged, presumably. You might remember the last turbocharged Ferrari. Luca de Montezemolo told us at the Geneva Motor Show earlier this year. And he was right, we do, because the last turbocharged Ferrari road car before this one was the F40. We remember that very fondly. But the reasons Ferrari has gone to turbocharging for the California now are not the same reasons that it adopted turbos when it wanted to extract 480 horsepower from a sub 3 litre V8 in an F40. The reasons it's gone now are for efficiency, the same reasons that so many manufacturers are moving towards turbos. So let me give you two numbers and get them out of the way very quickly. 250 grams per kilometre, 26.9 miles to the gallon. That means the Ferrari California T is about as efficient as a Vauxhall Insignia VXR. And it's a bit more powerful than one of those. This new 3.85 litre V8, one turbo on each bank, and it makes 552 horsepower, so that's 70 more brake than the California had before from its naturally aspirated engine. It still drives through a 7-speed twin clutch transmission, but that has been beefed up to account for the extra power and the extra torque as well, which is nearly 560 pounds-feet. I say up to 560 pounds-feet for the reason that Ferrari limits torque in lower gears, which it says is not to protect the transmission, so I have to take its word for it on that, but instead in lower gears to keep the same sort of naturally aspirated feel to the car if you want to be on it, basically. If you're pressing on and the rev limiter is 7.5, which is pretty high for a turbocharged motor, it makes peak power at 6.5, holds it all the way through to the red line. So in sort of second, third, fourth, they're right actually. There is not a great deal of turbo lag. They say it reaches full boost in about a second, which is half the time of some manufacturers like McLaren and Porsche. They mention, all right, there's not a lot of lag, I'll give them that. In higher gears, they allow the full torque to come through, and only in seventh does the whole lot come through, which is a longer gear than before, just all to add to this efficiency and improved economy. And that means that when you're just cruising along, you are pootling, you get a big whoosh of torque without having to rev the knackers off it. Actually, it works. It does work. In lower gears, it feels more naturally aspirated than you would credit. In higher gears, it's very relaxing just to push through. Anyway, so that's the engine. What about the rest of the car? Well, I'll tell you what, it's quite a comprehensive facelift. No exterior panels are carried over, except for the roof, which is unchanged. There are changes inside. We've got a thinner dashboard. Infotainment system is new, still not great. And there's this little turbo engineer, I think they call it, on the top of the dash, which is sort of a boost gauge efficiency meter. I'll be honest, it's difficult to see in daylight. It doesn't tell you very much other than this car has a turbo. But the most significant differences, then, engine aside, are to the chassis, and very welcome they are too, to be honest with you. The original California, the Handling Speciale edition, was much, much better, but the original California didn't really ride brilliantly, but also didn't control its body movements brilliantly. It was a sort of slightly frustrating car, really, but this, springs are 12% stiffer, steering is 10% sharper. Didn't strike me that it needed to be sharper, but go with it. And the Magnetorheological dampers. Now they're these adaptive ones that change their stiffness, oh blimey, like 50, 100 times a second, something ridiculous like that. They can go from full soft to full firm in a space of a yard or two when you're doing 60 miles an hour. They are extraordinary stuff. They're optional, but they're fitted to every California we'll ever get to see, I imagine. And it has transformed this car. The new chassis is just, it's gone from a slightly frustrating, never quite happy car into a chassis that's nicely balanced, rides well when you want it to, controls its body movements when you want it to, and whichever mode you're in. I've got 3 modes on the Magnetorheolo here. Comfort puts the dampers in their soft setting, at which they're fine even if you're pressing on. Sport puts them in their firm setting, in which they're comfortable even if you're not pressing on. You know, both modes can do both things, and if you press the bumpy road, which is a feature taken from bigger Ferraris, didn't used to be on the California, it puts the dampers in a halfway house mode. If you want the loosened stability control, if you want the engine and gearbox response in sport mode, but you don't want quite such firm dampers. But to be honest with you, it's fine, really very good, even if you leave the dampers at their stiffest. And all in all, it just makes this car just much more pleasing to drive all the time. The Ferrari says that 70% of California buyers are new to Ferrari. They haven't had a Ferrari before. They might even not buy a different one to a California, or certainly not until now. You know, they're different buyers from a 458 or an F12. They don't want the sort of razor sharpness and blah that comes with it. But you know what? In this car, they've now got a car that behaves much more like we know a traditional Ferrari would. It's beautiful balance. It's not edgy when you get it sliding. It's just, it feels much more like a Ferrari should. So much better than the old one. I cannot begin to tell you.